What's up, everybody? FTWitachi here. You know what it is, bringing you our updated Demonology guide for Shadowlands. Just over a month ago, we released our Demonology guide for the pre-patch of Shadowlands, but with a couple of weeks now under our belt, Season 1 just beginning, we are here with the updated version of our Demonology Warlock guide. And we're going to go ahead and start off with a little bit of a rundown on what Demonology is. This is a damage DPS spec, primary stat of intellect, a commander of demons who twists the souls of his army into devastating power. Preferred weapon choice of staff, wand, dagger, and sword, with the main abilities of Shadow Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Summon Felguard, Call Dreadstalkers, Implosion, and Summon Demonic Tyrant. Before we get into this guide, we're going to be covering everything that we did in the pre-patch of Shadowlands guide for Demonology Warlocks, such as talents, rotations, gems, enchants, and consumables, and so much more. So without further ado, let's get to it. But really quickly, if you are new around here, greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Stay tuned for some more World of Warcraft content. Like and share the video, and if you have any questions at the end of the video, please go ahead and post down below. And then without further ado, let's get to it. Starting off with the stat priority. Of course, as already explained, your main stat is going to be intellect, and you're going to be finding that on all of your gear options anyways, so there's not too much to worry about that. Especially as a cloth DPS anyways, you're going to be seeing intellect on all of your gear. That is going to be your main stat of choice. We do have intellect over mastery, which is equals to haste over crit over versatility. So what I mean by that is whether option you choose to stack, whether that's mastery or haste, each one is about as equal to the other. So if you want to go ahead and stack up mastery, or you want to go ahead and stack up haste, you can go ahead and do so. However, crit and versatility are the weaker links when it comes to your stat priority. So, as a recap, intellect over mastery, which is equal to haste over crit over versatility. However, with the rest of this guide, we're going to be stacking with mastery and sticking with mastery, so let's get to it. Starting off with enchants. Enchant ring, tenets of mastery, is going to be your enchant ring choice. Enchant weapon, you're going to be going with celestial guidance. New into Shadowlands enchant chest, we're going to be going with eternal stats. Also new into Shadowlands, we're going to be going with enchant cloak, fortified leech. Now there's 3 different new sections as well besides the chests and the cloaks when it comes to enchants in Shadowlands. Starting off with enchants boots. These are an agility slot enchant only option in Shadowlands. However, there is an enchant that we can take advantage of, and that is speed of soul. Next up is enchant wrist. This is where we're going to be using for us to benefit ourselves, is the intellect slot of enchant in Shadowlands. We're going to be going with enchant wrist, eternal intellect. And last but not least, enchant gloves, the strength slot enchant in Shadowlands. The options on these are absolutely terrible and not beneficial for us at all. Unless you have a gathering profession in Shadowlands, I suggest you go with enchant gloves, Shadowlands gathering. There's also additional buffs that you can apply to your gear. For example, with leatherworking, you can get for your chest, a heavy desolate armor kit, which is plus 32 stamina. Now, this isn't an enchant like back in the day. You would use this back in the day and it would replace your enchant. Nowadays, this does stack with your enchant, and it is very similar to applying let's say, a flask to yourself, how you get a buff for about 1 to 2 hours, depending on if you're an alchemist or not. This will just go ahead and apply a buff to your chest piece of plus 32 stamina, so might as well take advantage of it. And of course, there's another option from Alchemist for your weapon, Shadow Core Oil, which is going to deal extra shadow damage, and just like the Desolate Armor Kit, this is going to go ahead and stack on your weapon, so do not worry about your weapon enchant being removed. Your flask of choice is going to be a Spectral Flask of Power. Your potion of choice is going to be a Potion of Spectral Intellect. And your gem choice is going to be Masterful Jewel Cluster. Last but not least, your food option is going to be Indecent Ravioli with applesauce, which sounds yummy in my tummy. Or if you're in a guild group or raid group or any group that does have the option to go ahead and use the Feast of Glutinous Hedonism. Otherwise, if you are doing mostly solo content, just go ahead and make sure you have in your bags the Iridescent Ravioli of applesauce. Next up, we're going to be going over Demonology's talent choices. There are going to be 2 options, so this can get confusing, but I will go ahead and recap at the end. Starting off with the first tier of Dread Lash passive, when your Dreadstalkers charge into battle, their Dread Bite attack now hits all targets within 8 yards and deals 25% more damage. Battle Scourge Bombers, 2 Soul Shards instant, tear open a portal to the nether above the targeted location, from which several Battle Scourge will pour out and crash into the ground over 6 seconds, dealing 331 shadow damage to all enemies within 8 yards. Next up, we got Demonic Strength. Instant. Infuse your Fel Guard with Demonic Strength and command it to charge your target and unleash a Fel Storm that will deal 400% increased damage. So on this first tier, Dreadlash is the weakest link compared to the other two. There is a way where Dreadlash can be used, but then again, it's still not as good as the other two options. Dreadlash, and I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead, and From the Shadows could be used in Contagion. Basically both of those being used with a specific legendary as well as covenant option, but then again it's too much work and it's still not as good as the other two options, but it could be more versatile that way. I am going with Battle Scourge Bombers as my choice for this first tier. That is the RNG route that I will be taking. You'll see what I mean by that in just a bit. And then Demonic Strength is the usual choice on this first tier. Next up, we've got Demonic Calling passive. Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt have a 20% chance to make your next Call Dread Stalkers cost 2 fewer soul shards and have no cast time. Power Siphon. Instantly sacrifice up to 2 wild imps, generating 2 charges of Demonic Core that cause Demon Bolt to deal 30% additional damage. Doom, 500 mana. Instant inflicts impending doom upon the target, causing 2000 shadow damage over 18.7 seconds, also generating a soul shard. Doom is the weakest link by far on this tier set, and it is usually never selected. When it comes to the more traditional route, you're going to want to go with Demonic Calling. However, the RNG route that I like to play with is Power Siphon. Next up, Demon Skin, passive. Your Soul Leech Absorption now passively recharges at a rate of 0.5% of maximum health every 1 second, and may now absorb up to 15% of maximum health. Burning Rush, instant. Increases the movement speed by 50%, but also damages you for 4% of your maximum health every 1 second. Movement impairing effects may not reduce you below 100% of normal movement speed, lasts until cancelled. As well as Dark Pact, sacrifices 20% of the current health to shield you for 250% of that sacrificed health, plus an additional 1300 for 20 seconds. Usable while suffering from crowd control impairing effects. If you between the two defensive cooldowns, Demon Skin and Dark Pact, if you're looking for, or you do know there's going to be a quick and small window of major burst damage inflicted upon you, Dark Pact is definitely the way to go. Demon Skin, however, is the better option of the two, because longevity-wise, Demon Skin does provide a bigger defensive cooldown with the bubbles that you're going to be getting. When it comes to the absorption from Dark Pact, it is more of like an instant type of bubble that you are going to be expected a lot of damage to come at you. And in Burning Rush, last but not least, if you need that increased movement speed, especially during a PvE situation or in Mythic Plus Keystone runs, go ahead and pick up Burning Rush. But any of these three options are viable and suitable for different scenarios, so just go ahead and select what you need. From the Shadows, passive. Dreadbite causes the target to take 20% additional Shadow Flame damage from you for the next 12 seconds. Soul Strike, 50-yard range, instant. Command your Fel Guard to strike into the soul of its enemy, dealing 828 shadow damage, generate 1 soul shard. Summon Vile Fiend, 1 soul shard, 1.9 second cast. Summon a Vile Fiend to fight for you for the next 15 seconds. This is the only viable option in this tier. Whether you are going RNG or traditional route, Summon Vile Fiend is your talent. Dark Fury, passive. Reduces the cooldown of Shadow Fury for 15 seconds and increases its radius by 2 yards. Mortal Coil, 1000 mana, instant, horrifies an enemy target into fleeing, incapacitating them for 3 seconds, and healing you for 20% of the maximum health. And of course, Howl of Terror, instant. Let loose a terrifying howl, causing 5 enemies within 10 yards to flee in fear, disorienting them for 20 seconds. Damage may cancel this effect. When it comes to Battlegrounds, I like to go with Howl of Terror because I like the ability to have Shadow Fury and Howl of Terror as my crowd control abilities. When it comes to anything with duels, 1v1s, as well as arenas, 2v2s and 3v3s, I like to go with Mortal Coil. Last but not least, I also like to use Mortal Coil in PvE situations where I do not need Shadow Fury with Dark Fury. The reason being is, yes, a boss won't get affected by the incapacitating for 3 seconds, but it is a nice defensive cooldown with the ability to heal you for 20% of that maximum health. And then last but not least, Dark Fury. If you are on a raid boss that has a lot of adds that need to get stunned and it's just going to help out your group, especially in situations like Mythic Keystones, Dark Fury is definitely the way to go. Soul Conduit, passive. Every soul shard you spend has a 15% chance to be refunded. Inner Demons, passive. You passively summon a wild imp to fight for you for every 12 seconds. And a 10% chance to also summon an additional demon to fight for you for 15 seconds. Grimoire Felguard, 1 soul shard instant, summons a Felguard who attacks the target for 17 seconds and deals 25% increased damage. This Felguard will also stun upon being summoned. This is the more traditional route to go, and it is the biggest DPS increase compared to the other two. Soul Conduit is the weakest link and is never going to be used. Inner Demons is my RNG route with talent choices, and I do love it. Next up, and last but not least, Sacrifice Souls, passive. Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt deal 4% additional damage per demon you have summoned. Demonic Consumption, passive. Your demon commander now drains 15% of the life from your demon servants to empower himself. And last but not least, Nether Portal, 1 soul shard, 2.3 second cast. Tear open a portal to the Twisting Nether for 15 seconds. Every time you spend soul shards, you will also command another demon from that nether to come out and fight for you. When it comes to the traditional route, you're going to select Demonic Consumption, and if you're going the RNG route, you're going to select Nether Portal. Sacrifice Souls is the weakest link and is never used. Just to give you guys a heads up, the more traditional route, you're going to go with Demonic Strength, Demonic Calling, whatever option you want out of the 3, but Demon Skin, you're going to go with Summon Vile Fiend, any of these 3 options, but I'm going with Mortal Coil. Then you're going to go with Grimoire Felguard and Demonic Consumption. When it comes to the RNG route, you're going to go with Battle Scourge Bombers, Power Siphon, Demon Skin, but any of the other 2 will do. Summon Vile Fiend, Mortal Coil, any of the other 2 will do as well. Inner Demons, and Nether Portal. The 2 major differences between these 2 specs. One is the more traditional route is the more standard set that most people will be using because it is the more DPS and the more damage output. However, it is not that much of a difference compared to the RNG spec. The RNG spec does fall behind the traditional spec when it comes to damage. However, if you do get the ability to RNGesus on your side with Inner Demons, Nether Portal, and the rest from this setup, you will surpass the traditional setup very, very much so. The damage that you can bring from the RNG setup is very, very high compared to the traditional setup. So it's either or, there's different play styles, and you're not losing much if you go with the RNG route anyways. So that's why I like to play it, and to be honest with you, it's fun just summoning a bunch of demons. Next up, we're going to go into the PvP talents, starting off with Singe Magic, 40-yard range instant. Command your summoned imp to remove all harmful magical effects from the target, but deals 3% of their total health in fire damage. Your imp must be your current active pet to use Singe Magic. Absolutely no. Do not pick this talent. Call Fel Hunter, 500 mana instant. Invoke the power of the Fel Hunter from the Nether to instantly spell lock the enemy target. Call Fel Hunter cannot be used if your current pet is the Fel Hunter. Spell lock counters the enemy's spell cast, preventing any spell from that school of magic from being cast for 6 seconds. It is a useful ability, but there are better options, but there are situations where this can be used, especially when you're playing against different classes in 1v1 duels. Pleasure through pain, passive. While your succubus is active, your shadow damage is increased by 15% and the cast time of your shadow bolt is reduced by 0.5 seconds. Not really useful. It is useful, but there's better options, let's put it that way. Call Fel Lord, 2 soul shards instant. Summon a Fel Lord to guard the location for 15 seconds. Any enemy that comes within 6 yards will suffer up to 5% of their maximum health and damage, and players will also be struck with a stun for 1 second. That is an option that I do like to use a lot of, and it is very, very useful as well. Master Summoner, passive. Your Call Dreadstalkers is now instant cast. It is very, very useful PvP talent. Being of Fragility, 625 mana instant, reduces the target's maximum health by up to 15% for 10 seconds. Not a useful PvP talent. Next up, Gateway Mastery, increases the range of your demonic gateway by 20 yards and reduces the cast time by 30%. Reduces the time between how often players can take your demonic gateway, 15 seconds. Now, if we had a 4th PvP talent option, I would maybe choose this one, but overall, it's not really useful in most situations. It's very, very nice to have, but sadly, we only have 3 options when it comes to PvP talents, and there's better options than the Gateway Mastery. Nether Ward, defensive cooldown, 500 mana, instant, surrounds the caster with a shield that lasts 3 seconds, reflecting all harmful spells cast on you. Very nice to play with if you want. Nothing negative to say about this one. Essence Drain, pretty much the same thing. Defensive cooldown, passive. Whenever you heal yourself with Drain Life, the enemy target deals 5% reduced damage to you for 6 seconds, and that does stack up to 5 times. Last but not least, we got Casting Circle, 1000 mana, 0.47 second cast, summons a Casting Circle for 8 seconds. While within the Casting Circle, you are immune to silence and interrupt effects. Learning Casting Circle causes an enemy resolve to no longer grant you immunity to silence and interrupt effects. Absolutely useless. Do not, I repeat, do not choose this one. And I did say last but not least, we got 2 more, sorry about that. Call Observer, 500 mana, instant, summons a demonic observer to keep a watchful eye over the area for 20 seconds. Anytime an enemy within 20 yards casts a harmful magical spell, the observer will deal up to 5% of the target's maximum health and shadow damage. Absolutely love this ability. And pretty much a standard across all Warlock specs. Amplify Curse, instant, your next Curse of Exhaustion, Curse of Tongues, and Curse of Weakness is amplified. Curse of Exhaustion reduces the target's movement speed by an additional 20%. Curse of Tongues increases casting time by an additional 30%. And Curse of Weakness, enemy is unable to critically strike. Absolutely love that talent, and it is pretty much a standard go-to for all 3 Warlock specs anyways. Now for the last portion of this video, we're going to be going over the rotation for a Demonology Warlock. We're just going to be covering the basics. We're not going to be going into details on cooldowns and curses, all that other side stuff that you will. For example, of course, be using your health stones, be using your curses on specific fights. Of course, we're going to be having out our Felguard most of the time, or our Wrathguard, depending on if you have them glyphed. For example, you're not going to be using Corruption as an ability in your rotation. Of course, if you have trinkets, if you have potions, all that type of stuff. There's other things that are included into a rotation, but I'm going to be giving you the basic rundown on how to play Demonology within this portion of the video. So without further ado, let's get to it. So when it comes to single target rotation as a Demonology Warlock, you're going to want to go ahead and use Summon Vile Fiend on cooldown. You're going to want to go ahead and use Hand of Gul'dan when you have 3+ soul shards. Depending on the Covenant choice option, you're going to want to use your Covenant ability on cooldown as well. For example, here we've got Decimating Bolt. You're going to want to go ahead and use Demon Bolt if you have it procced. And of course, be using Dreadstalkers on cooldown as well. Your main abilities are going to be Nether Portal, or your main cooldowns are going to be Nether Portal as well as Demonic Tyrant. So go ahead and try to tag those in to your fight as best as possible. I'll give you a little bit more in-depth in just a bit. And of course, Power Siphon is also another cooldown when you need to go ahead and generate some mass amount of soul shards. So, for example, let's go ahead and get into a basic opener without pre-potting and stuff. So let's go ahead and use Summon Vile Fiend as well as Dreadstalkers on cooldown. We got our Tyrant out, and of course I'm going to just rock out some Nether Portal. I would usually go ahead and save that to a little bit later, my Summon Demonic Tyrant, but just for this part of the video, we're just going to go ahead and get into it quickly. When you have your portal out, it does switch your rotation just a little bit. You're going to be using Shadow Bolt and Hand of Gul'dan basically back and forth until your portal is gone. And the reason for that is you're trying to get as many demons summoned out as quickly as possible. Also, don't forget your pet's ability. Even though it's an AoE ability, it is still useful to use when it comes to single target. But other than that, that is pretty much it for a single target rotation when it comes to Demonology Warlock. So without further ado, let's go ahead and move on to AoE. When it comes to multiple targets for a Demonology Warlock, you're basically going to be using your single target rotation and tying in Implosion as well as Bow Scourge Bombers as a soul shard spam. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just rack up some soul shards with our single target rotation as quickly as we possibly can. And once we have enough soul shards, and of course continue using your Call Dreadstalkers and Vile Fiend on cooldown, and of course any other ability that is required in your single target rotation on cooldown. But once you have enough soul shards, go ahead and start using Bow Scourge Bombers, and then while that is on cooldown, you're just going to want to go ahead and go back to your single target, and the reason for this is you want to go ahead and rack out as many imps as you possibly can until you feel like you're ready to go ahead and use Implosion on the target, which is going to go ahead and deal a lot of damage, especially if you have enough imps out at that given time. So that's pretty much it, just basically your single target rotation and tying in Implosion as well as Bow Scourge Bombers. Now with that completed, thank you all very much for tuning in. I hope this answers most of your questions when it comes to Warlocks in Shadowlands. If you have any questions, go ahead and post down below. If we missed anything, we're either going to be putting it into a different video, for example, Legendaries, Conduits, Soulbinds, and Covenants. Those are going to be in separate videos. Stay tuned for some more World of Warcraft content. Subscribe if you're new around here. like and share the video as well, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.